so I didn't quite know what to expect. What I really feel, my real feelings towards Morocco and how I've felt during this entire trip. If you're lucky enough to be able to visit Morocco, just do it. Possibly the most surprising part of my entire trip. As I have come to the end of my Morocco journey, I wanted to share my true feelings about my trip around this beautiful country and why you must visit. Hello and welcome to the final video of my Morocco trip. So in this video, I'm going to talk about my real feelings towards Morocco and how I've felt during this entire trip. So because I've been to 5 different places, I've seen a good breadth of the country and all different things that come with visiting Morocco. So I'm going to go through the good points, if there were any bad points, and this might have to be a quick video because the weather is already starting to turn a little bit. It's nice and warm, but it's just starting to have a tiny bit of rain coming. So I'm not sure. But like I said, I have loved my time in Morocco. It's my first ever time in the country, so I didn't quite know what to expect. And the best thing about it, I think, is I've been to 5 different places in Morocco, and each city were completely different to the other. So from starting in Tangier, that is so close to Spain. When you look at the map, it's the very tip of Morocco, the very northern point. And even there, you can see the Spanish influence. That's one amazing point that I've loved about Morocco, is just the diverse nature of the culture. Of course, there's the rich Moroccan culture, which you see across the entire country. You have the old Medinas, you have the Kasbahs, you have the great food, and the smells that surround the Medinas is unbelievable. You've either got incense or you've got just food being cooked in front of you. It's just an amazing experience getting to see that side of Morocco. But before coming to the country, I would say my thoughts and thinkings about the country would be mainly around the Medinas and the souks. I would say that's probably the stereotypical thing when you come to Morocco. It are those souks and those Medinas. They're lined with unbelievable things you can buy. And each place though, again, it's different to the last with how they run their Medinas. Going from Tangier, you have the white walls, blue decorations. Whereas when you go to Fez, that's the ancient part of the country as far as I'm concerned. You have thousands of these little alleyway streets that you've got to try and navigate through. And that in itself was a crazy experience because you are literally in a massive labyrinth where obviously everybody who lives there knows their way, but any tourist has no chance. But I tried to handle that by, I always wanted to get lost and just experience it on my own because I think if you have a guide, even though it's helpful and a lot less stressful, you're taken from A to B really quickly, and I wanted to actually immerse myself in the maze. But it was actually here in Fez where I had sort of one of the moments where I would class as maybe a slight negative, not of Morocco as a whole, but maybe of this destination, and it was those tour guides. Even though, like I said, they are helpful, and sometimes when I need to get somewhere in particular quite quickly, they come in really handy, but you are pressured a lot to go with them, and it does get a little bit tiring because every single corner you take, clearly they know you're not from the area, and they sort of try and take advantage of that by wanting a tip for every single thing they try and show you, even though you don't ask. And I made it clear on quite a few occasions that I didn't want to go with them. I wanted to go on my own, and they just always said, no, we're friends, I'm doing this as a favour. And I knew what was happening, I knew what was going to happen. And sometimes they took it quite badly when I said I didn't want to go with them and I refused to go with them, or they would walk alongside me even though I sort of knew roughly the direction I was going. And that was a slight negative because you constantly feel like you're taken advantage of or attempted to take advantage of. But across the other cities, that didn't happen as much. On occasions it might have done, and I expect that more so in Marrakech, but it just didn't happen at all. I was left to my own devices and you weren't pressured to do anything. It was only really Fez where I saw that. But if you were going for a relaxing holiday or wanting to do it easier, it would be helpful to get a professional guide, I would say, because mostly the people around just live there. So they just see it as a good chance for them to make some money, which I never begrudge anybody doing that. You've got to do what you've got to do to make money. So I completely understand it. It's just a little bit irritating at times. Going city to city, Rabat was a big surprise to me because it is the capital city, but it felt like a much smaller city compared to some of the others I went to. Casablanca, for example, that is a huge city, very, very big, very busy, and it felt more like the capital than Rabat did. Rabat was, a bit more intimate everywhere you went, a bit more closed off, I would say, from tourism. That's how it felt at the time. It might not be that way. It felt like it was unexpected that there was tourists there rather than to be expected like with Marrakech and Fez. The rain is coming in. I'm going to have to make a move somewhere else for a little bit. But what I would say is I love Morocco. All the people have been so kind and so nice, so welcoming. Got great food, great things to see, great cities to visit. And I didn't get round to see some of the beaches, but I think the time of year, I came in the winter, so it's a bit different. If you're going to be there in the summer, the beaches will be incredible. I saw a small part of that in places like Rabat, where you had unbelievable waves, and in Casablanca I saw some nice beaches alongside the huge Hassan II mosque. They're not even popular destinations for beaches. Can't wait to head back in the summer and get a real feel of that side of Morocco. But yeah, this weather now, not ideal. Just got a little bit of cover for a few minutes before I head back either to a mall or my hotel maybe, I'm not sure. But another great thing about Morocco is that the transport system. I got the train everywhere I went to in Morocco. So from Tangier to Fez, Fez to Rabat, Rabat Casablanca, and then finally Casablanca through to Marrakech. And it was really easy. My little tip, maybe go for first class, because I didn't know anything about the first and second class system on the trains. But what I'd say is, with the second class, which is where I went from Tangier to Fez, which is quite a long train journey, you're quite crammed in. So I think it was 5 seats opposite another 5 seats. But in reality, the space was about 3 of you. So it was very, very crammed in. And when I was on that train, there was a young child with her mother and I think sister as well. So they were sharing even more seats. So it was very crammed in, hot as well, the train. So I would say go first class if you can, because it's only marginally more expensive and you have your own seat, you have arms on the seat, it's a lot more comfortable. And like I said, it's not too much more expensive. Everywhere else after that, I kept doing the first class, but it's not like European first class where you're paying a huge fee or really elaborate. It's very ordinary, just a bit more comfortable. So that's a big tip I would give you if you're going to head towards Morocco. And you can afford it, of course, but yeah, easy. The trains were always on time. The train stations were in good locations compared to the centre of the city. So yeah, you haven't got to fly anywhere. Buses I didn't try, but I imagine the bus system will be pretty good because the train system was so good. Another big thing about Morocco is the culture. I mentioned it a bit earlier on. There is a big, rich culture in Morocco, and you've got to get involved with it. So going to stay in like a riad is a big thing for you to do when you visit Morocco. The beautiful accommodations, it's basically artwork all over the walls. That's a big thing you should do if you visit Morocco. But like I said, you've got to engage in the culture. Don't just think of it as a tourist destination. Get involved, try the food. I loved the fact that you have these mega busy cities, but right next to the main places to go to, like the Medinas, the Kasbahs, wherever it may be, there always seems to be an amazing park, which I love. Anything nature, I love parks in general, but it's here more than anywhere where I felt like you needed it, because you have such busy days walking around these old Medinas and Kasbahs that you need a bit of nature, and they're always in pristine condition, and there's always good places to sit, and they're relaxing, they're quiet. So everyone's always respectful of each other. No one's running around or screaming or things I've seen in other countries where it's not as relaxing. You go from being surrounded by thousands of people to a 30-second walk across the road to a beautiful park. And again, Fez was the pinnacle of this. I was tired after walking around the Medina in Fez because it's so busy and difficult to navigate, and there's a beautiful park so close by. And that leads me on to possibly the most surprising part of my entire trip, and that was just how clean Morocco was. Now, I wasn't anticipating it being unclean, but just anywhere you go in the world, especially mainly the big built-up cities, they tend to be not the cleanest. Especially even like in Europe, you go to capital cities in Europe, big rich countries, and there's often rubbish around or unclean parts of the city. Whereas Morocco, everywhere I went to was so clean. It's really well taken care of. There seems to be good pride in the country. When you know somewhere that takes pride in the appearance of a city, it instantly makes you feel more at ease, and it instantly makes the cities more beautiful. So, like I said, from Tangier to Fez to Marrakech at the end, everywhere was so clean. Of course, there's always parts of cities where it's always not the case. Maybe in Casablanca I saw a few areas where it was a bit more rustic, a bit more, maybe not as rich, I would say, in terms of the city, but on the whole, across the entire country that I went to, yeah, so clean. And the architecture across Morocco was stunning. Again, possibly the nicest mosque I've ever seen in Casablanca, the Hassan II mosque. Maybe rivaling the one I saw in Oman, which is also unbelievable. But not just that, even the general decor of the Medinas, like the blue and white in Tangier, you have the rustic, ancient feel of Fez. Even like Casablanca, you can see that's getting built up now. That's the modern part of the country, and it's going to only get more and more modern as time goes on. There's a lot of restoration work going on. So I'm definitely planning on visiting again. Maybe in another 10 years. That seems like a long time, but I can't wait to see the difference in particularly Casablanca between now and 10 years time. And I think as it gets closer towards the World Cup that Morocco is going to be co-hosting, I think the entire country is going to change dramatically. So that'll be very interesting to see. I just hope it keeps the Moroccan charm that it's got and doesn't go too modern, because having that Moroccan feel about every city, it's such a positive thing, and mixing that in with the modern, yeah, it's been fascinating. Can't wait to see it. I mentioned before the tour guides across mainly Fez. That was one of the main negative points I would say about my time in Morocco, just because it gets a bit tiring and you want to have your own space. But aside from that, there wasn't too much I didn't like across the whole country. There's always things that you could maybe see better or do better, but I just think in the whole, Morocco's an amazing country to visit. And with it being Africa, I think it's a good starting point for an African journey. That is part of the world I want to visit a lot more. Africa, Central Africa and South Africa. As I go on across my life, Africa is a big part of the world I want to visit more. So getting this little feel of the continent with Morocco, it's made me even more excited to visit as much as I possibly can, and I can't wait to do that. The one other negative I had across my Morocco journey was Marrakech, not as a city of course, but just seeing the animals in chains, like the monkeys in chains. I don't quite understand the snake charming, so I'm not going to comment too much on that, but even still, I know it's a very ancient thing that comes with Marrakech in general. I'm not going to judge this too much because it's not appropriate for me to do that. Just for my own moral views, I'm never a fan of seeing animals chained up or treated poorly. So that's just me. I'm not going to judge that situation. It doesn't really sit well with me, and I wouldn't be myself if I didn't comment on that. But that was only in the Jemaa el-Fnaa environment. You see a lot of donkeys being used and horses being used for travel, and I'm okay with that because I think they generally are well treated. From what I saw, they seem very healthy, and I've been told by a few Moroccans that they are treated well. They've equally said they don't like seeing the animals in chains. So, you know, some people like that and engage with it, some people don't, and that's locals included. So for me, just not a fan of the animal side of things. I prefer seeing them in their own environment because they're living naturally then. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to affect my opinion of the individual cities, and certainly not the country in general, because the country is absolutely stunning across the board. It's beautiful. So overall, I think if you're lucky enough to be able to visit Morocco, just do it. You will not regret it. Everywhere is beautiful, and I've only seen a small part of the country. So in my last video, I asked for some help of where I should visit next, and I want to do the same now. Keep telling me where I should go to. I've already got a list of places I want to visit across the world. I've got now a separate list for a second visit in Morocco. So people who told me where to go to last week in my previous video, that's already on this list. But I want more. More and more and more. The more the better, because then I can really tailor my next trip to make it the best possible trip I can. This time round was all down to me. So I knew there's sort of 5 big cities I wanted to visit, with it being winter. In the summer, that might have changed. There'd be more natural places I want to visit in the summer. Maybe the Atlas Mountains, maybe some of the more beachy areas. But I'm delighted with everything I saw in the country, and I can't wait to come back and see even more. And there's one more thing I didn't do in Morocco because I wasn't quite sure what I should do about this, but as you may know, across all the places I visit, I always do drawings to go alongside with it. So I wasn't quite sure who to draw and paint from Morocco. The only people I know to with Morocco really are the footballers. So Hakimi, Mazraoui, people like that, but I didn't know who would be appropriate to draw. So if you can tell me for my next trip, who are the best people in Morocco to draw? It could be sports stars, it could be film stars, political people, I don't really know. So I want you to leave a comment and tell me also who I could draw from Morocco. That's a lot of questions for you now. Where I should go, what I should eat, who I should draw. I need some help. It's time for me to leave Morocco and start my next journey, and I'm heading back to Asia. Check out some more of my videos and subscribe to the channel.